And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Record of Swordforged Worlds, a unofficial Sword World podcast. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good brothers and sisters. Ha 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 ha. We have the man who lost his name and got only a letter. Good brother A.
Hello, everybody.
We have the master of the Wanderer's Library and the guy who I may have pilfered a few swords from at least once for meditation purposes. Good brother Sig.
You still owe me those back.
Oh, you'll get them back. I just have to adjust the aim for the catapult.
Oh, god damn it. Do you have any idea how long it's going to take me to chase those down?
Yes.
Fucking.
But
You gotta get your steps in.
we have making his debut in the hallowed halls of the monastery. Good brother Amorzan Lechtenfield. I'm pretty sure I screwed up the last name. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're okay. It's Leichenfeld.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yep. Thank you for coming on to this particular crusade of chaos, drinking, games, and drinking. We have the man losing arguments with himself, good brother Hydra.
I'm on Carla. You will not be missed.
And making her return to the monastery, our resident headbutt heavy sheep, good sister Maki.
Hi, I am Maki. I love women. Clearly not the audience I am getting here, but I might as well settle.
Oh. Remember, if anything goes bad, it's Carla's fault.
Always fucking Carla.
So, also, I think Dragon was trying to make a Canadian joke.
Oh, look, I'm sorry. I don't concern myself with Canadian humor.
Oh. I only concern myself with Canadian humor once a year.
See, you said sorry. You're already Canadian, eh, bud?
No. He hasn't committed war crimes yet.
That you know of.
You don't know that.
That is true.
No offense, but you're not good at bluffing.
I mean, it's not a war crime if it's done the first time.
Exactly. It's only on the second time where it sticks.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct. But we are back once again after a bit of a detour covering the world of Gaia. We're heading right back into Anima. Not right back into Anima. What am I saying? Right back into Sword World. We spent a few months covering the 1.0 era, but now we are into the era that I think a lot of people are going to be the most familiar with. Now, before we even get into what the hell happened, I do need to set the tone a little bit. So, Sword World 2.0 is technically a second edition, but also its own beast. And there are a few reasons for this, and I'm pretty sure Alquid and anyone else will feel free to correct me, because I'm bound to get some things cross-wired. That kind of thing happens when you're relying on second and third-hand information as a historian. But the mid to late 90s were a rough time for TTRPGs in Japan. TCGs were starting to hit the market and were eating everybody's lunch. And a lot of TTRPG lines got shelved or outright canceled in the process, including a full magazine. There was a subset of Dragon that was published by, I think, Fujimi, called RPG Dragon, that was dedicated just to TTRPGs. Dragon, and those of you who are TSR veterans know it's not that Dragon. They have nothing in common except the name. But now Dragon had done plenty of stuff with TTRPGs, but it was sharing space with video games as well. And RPG Dragon was supposed to be TTRPG focused. It only lasted a few issues. The main takeaway that I got out of it was the Chaos Land issues, which we covered a few months back. But Monster Collection especially was raking in a lot in the late 90s. Of course, I think also around that time, I do remember seeing covers that that were talking about Magic the Gathering. And for a while it looked like TTRPGs would be on the back foot. Sword World weathered some of this storm, but even it was not immune to the changes in fortunes. And there were some attempts to try and keep up. One of them being a card-based variant of Sword World that I do have a few scans of the cards, though I don't exactly know how it would work. I likened it to the Warlord TCG from the mid-2000s, which made a comeback about a decade ago.
If I may,
Go ahead.
as someone who has been alive during that time, I can confirm there were several projects that got cancelled from being made because the whole concept of TTRPGs just simply didn't sit well with the rapid work-filled environment of Japanese culture. It's also why mobile games started to take off, but I digress. People preferred interactivity of TCGs and gameplay of simple video games. My dad also mentioned a few projects less known in the West got abruptly cut off because of that period.
As far as the Western projects that got cut off during that period, one of them was probably D&D, and that is because of the, to call it a shit show would be an understatement that happened with TSR.
Dungeons & Dragons also got shafted entirely because of its specific.
95 was the last gasp of TSR. No one thing killed TSR, but a major element of it was Lorraine Williams. Now, I have spoken to plenty of people who have worked at TSR at various points, including the late Jim Ward, and nobody has anything nice to say about her. They either have some kind of story about how she was an idiot, or they say nothing. I will leave it up to you which is more damning. And these range from the Nintendo levels of litigiousness they had against anybody posting house rules on the internet. The Buck Rogers game she tried to push in 1986 that no one asked for.
I was about to say, I haven't heard Buck Rogers since I was like 5.
Yeah, she tried to push for that. Nobody asked for it, There is that now. There was also the fact that she banned game playing on company grounds for a game company.
You know, it's up there with hey, nobody can eat a sandwich at a sandwich company.
Mm-mm. And one of the more absurd ones, to the point where I did a spit take when I heard it, trying to push D&D out of hobby stores and into Sears catalogs. Sears catalogs was specifically what was mentioned in that story.
That was a mistake.
It didn't happen.
Ike?
If only because everybody else shot it down or threatened to walk if she went through with it.
I could see that potentially be good at like hobby shops and Sears catalogs, but going straight into Sears catalog, that would never work.
From what I was told, the reason why that was even pitched was a larger potential audience.
Why does that sound so familiar?
I
Yeah,
have
the
used
town.
I have used the term called the greener grass fallacy. Built on the adage, the grass is always greener on the other side. But sometimes the green is radioactive. And Dragon asks, how did she even get the job? She got the job because she had the controlling amount of stock when the Bloom brothers decided to give one last fuck you to Gygax. After the Bloom brothers almost ran the company into the ground while Gygax was trying to get the D&D movie made. He had to do an emergency flight from LA back to Lake Geneva to read them their walking papers. And on their way out, they gave their shares to Lorraine. But the point is, TSR going belly up was a multitude of factors. From what I have heard and what has been relayed to me, the TCG bubble of sorts suddenly burst around 2002, and no one quite knows what happened. At the very least, that's Katakawa's story, that around 2002, there just wasn't demand anymore. It just suddenly stopped. My personal theory is that there was an issue of too much at once. Because that same kind of TCG bubble happened here in the States just several years later, where every Tom, Dick, and Harry had a TCG, and it created a market flood. See also the OGL bubble from 2000 to 2005. I suppose also the state of comic books, where there was just way too much shit out there that you couldn't possibly keep up with.
And most of the stuff in comic books not just at best being mediocre.
It was the 90s.
It is entirely speculative, but can confirm many of people who I knew got overwhelmed with the amount of cards they needed to keep up with. I can't confirm it was the same across Japan, but it was in my town.
And part of the reason why I have that theory is it matches a repeating pattern that I've seen in other mediums. In Puroresu, there was the issue of a lot of people getting the wrong idea from 01. And just thinking, hey, I made my name in New Japan or Old Japan. Maybe I can start my own promotion. A lot of them didn't last. Some of them lasted way longer than they should have. And then there was Fighting of World Japan, which is probably the worst promotion in Japanese wrestling history. No, that is not hyperbole, because when you end up getting a trainee killed, uh, I think you deserve that. Not deserve the death of the trainee, but deserve being called the worst. And is probably the one big black mark on Riki Choshu's record. But there were similar patterns in other areas. I remember when I was in high school, and anytime any IP got some degree of traction, I would see a TCG of it. Sometimes by Score, who I called the Kings of Clutter, because I ended up trying some of those games, because this was around the time of places like Shinders. I've kind of, but the point is that by the time we get to the 2000s, going back to Sword World, it was felt that direction for Sword World had run its course. And the ideas on what to do with that setup were running thin. It was also felt that some new blood was needed, and through a chain of events that also involves Arclight, who's the third of the big three when it comes to tabletop publishing in Japan that I've noticed. The big three being Group SNE, Fear, and Arclight. The mantle of running Sword World was passed over from Ryo Mizuno to Kei Kitazawa, and it's more or less been that way since. This was also done because the 20th anniversary of Sword World was coming up, and it was felt that it needed a fresh start. Now, some of the changes that were done at the request of fans who wrote letters to Group SNE, or through a lengthy consulting process involving a lot of people who had been playing the game for years. And
I may or may not have been one of those fans sending letters.
yeah, there were I covered this when we talked about the 10 Children World Book for 1.0, but there was an interesting relationship between people who submitted feedback and what stuff got put out. A lot of the 10 Children region within the 1.0 era were built on ideas suggested from fans. And now, as far as what ideas led to what result, I can't say for certain on that, because a lot of the entries were either under pseudonyms or were just listed as anonymous.
A lot of SNE developers and people basically went, "Fans have amazing ideas, why don't we just use that?"
Which, honestly is a smart move to make. I think the writer of the Metro series had a similar attitude regarding the feedback that he got
Which is an
from his
insane
readers.
concept for a lot of modern developers for some reason.
Yeah.
A little side tangent. I will say it depends on who the developers are listening to, because I got invited to test a product, and every time I've tested it thus far, it just kept getting worse because they keep listening to the wrong fans.
There is certainly that, and that's why it's important to have a variety of sources to listen to instead of just the ass kissers, and more importantly, to know what.
Oh no, these aren't ass kissers.
Oh,
these are people that deliberately want a specific game, but the developers aren't making that game. currently, and it pisses them off to no end.
Oh, that type. Oh, fuck them. I've
Yeah,
I have-
exactly. I
I have
stopped being
dealt-
I stopped being nice in the Discord.
Yeah, I have dealt with that. I can say it for certain that Zan and I have dealt with that kind of thing personally. And while things got ugly for a minute, I think I came out on the other side smelling more like roses. But I know that one of the major things that was brought up when I was doing research about the changes was adjusting certain classes so that they had more of a impact. I think Sage was one of the big ones, since from what I ended up hearing, Sage didn't get picked a lot in the 1.0 era. After studying that era, I can kind of understand why. Especially given the way classes work. But I think it was a bold choice to instead of just do a revisit of Forcelia. We instead go with a whole setting completely. And those of you watching the stream, you'll see two of the major regions for the 2.0 and 2.5 eras. Not only that, but having a whole new approach to lore and the way certain concepts worked. Like, there's always been a section, a division of eras in Sword World. In 2.5, I'd say it was far more blatant, and we will get into some of that in a couple of weeks. But the biggest change is having a new creation myth built on the Swords of Genesis, and that being where the name Sword World comes from in this case. In the 1.0 era, Sword World was called that because of the Age of Sword after the end of the Age of Magic. Mostly due to non-magic users staging this massive uprising that collapsed the ancient kingdom. 2.0 has the Swords of Genesis, which are the literal creators of the setting. All in an attempt to create something that could wield them. Those swords would be Lumiere, the sword of harmony; Ignis, the sword of freedom; and Cardia, the sword of mana. And there's plenty of art and the like that shows it, and the cover art for 2.0 and 2.5 is supposed to have basically waifu versions of the three swords.
I mean, you can't go wrong with waifus.
I mean, that is true. It makes making marketable plushies so much easier.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And just to illustrate my point, in the side chat for you guys, I'm going to put up the cover art for the unified version that recently came out in Japan for 2.5. The main reason I'm showing that is because it shows the three swords I mentioned.
That's a nice looking cover.
Mm-hmm. In the middle is Lumiere. On the left side is Ignis, and on the right side is Cardia.
Gimme.
And both in 2.0 and 2.5, that theme of showing the three swords became a thing. I don't think it's ever outright stated if they ended up making the world entirely, but they were responsible for the creation of several races, including the magical beasts, which were an attempt to make the perfect vessel for them. The problem was they were too perfect and didn't have proper tool use. Whereas the more humanoid races were seen as the ideal wielder of them, and those who would wield these swords would come in contact with them would become gods, and that is how the pantheon is born out of the system. The first of these was born from the sword that came first, which was Lumiere. Also, why the chief god of the gods of the first sword, Lyphos, has the title of Divine Ancestor. I've seen some try and say that Lyphos is the setting equivalent to Zeus or Jupiter. No, because Lyphos does not have nearly as many bastard children as Zeus does.
To be fair, very few does.
Remember that you can sum up 90% of Greek mythology with, unfortunately, Zeus was feeling horny.
And Norse mythology with, and then Loki had an idea.
Just don't ask about the horse.
The origin of Slipnir.
Yes.
A part of me is a little unfortunate that never got addressed in like the Marvel movies.
Given one of Loki's skins in Marvel Rivals, I'm surprised not enough people made that joke either.
A lot of Marvel fans are only familiar with the movies and not necessarily the mythos around it.
Mm-hmm. But the other image I will share with you, these are the covers for 2.5, and you can kind of see what I meant when I said that they're humanoid versions of the three swords of Genesis. The original translation I had called them the three swords of creation, then went with Genesis, which honestly I think is a closer fit.
Potato, potato.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love that artwork.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really, really damn good artwork throughout both editions of Sword World, or both eras, I should say. But oddly enough, the first 2 was actually a module, and this was if I have my timeline right, this was Vice City, which was meant to be a kind of lead up to what they were planning on doing with 2.0. Now, one of the other distinctions that has to be made is the fact that 2.0 and 2.5 have two different default areas. And as an aside, this is another reason why I've said the Japan's answer to D&D claim that some people make with Sword World doesn't really work, because Sword World has never had to hem and haw about what kind of fantasy it is or what setting it takes place in. And 2.0 is no different. It takes place in the world of Raxia, and specifically one of two major continents. And give me 1 second while I. So the 2.0 run takes place in Terrastier, with a few other regions that are left as blank slates. The 2.5 takes place in Alflame. And once again, I do have to thank our good sister Riona for the nice weathering that she did when it came to the maps that I sent her. I'm gonna put this in Sacricity for you guys.
Nice.
There are certainly kingdoms and the like, but Sword World is a post-apocalypse. And what I mean by that is the apocalypse has happened. In fact, it happened, what, 3 times? But enough time has passed from that apocalypse that
3.5.
Yep. That people have started to pick up. And you have a world that is very much leaning into comic book style high fantasy, with some bits of modern / futuristic technology laced in. And I will admit that sort of mixing together is, for starters, something we see that anyone who's played a console style RPG in the last 30 years has seen plenty of. But it also is something I've mentioned many times I enjoy, when you have that mix of styles, but is wholly its own thing. And even with that, there are 2 major themes that are carried over from 1.0. One of them is adventuring is a profession. In fact, that's even more the case in the 2.0 era, with methods of advancement within that profession and the like. The other is rediscovery. Because of what happened in those multiple apocalypses, there is a lot of technology and magic that has been lost, and whole institutions built on trying to discover and revive it. In 1.0, a lot of that was in terms of lost magic, and that certainly is present here. But I'd say the bigger lost technology isn't necessarily magic, but magitech. And incidentally, I do enjoy the fact that with a setting like Raxia, which is the name for the world as a whole, there is a clear understanding of where magic comes from. Magic in Raxia was born when the third sword shattered, as a way to try and end the endless conflict between the human and barbarous factions. And yes, barbarous, not Scarborn, Mugen Gaming, barbarous. Because it's not a one-to-one, but you could kind of look at the relationship between the humanoid races and the barbarous races as something...
Scarborn sounds like Temu version of Dragonborn.
Yeah, everybody hated it.
Yeah, it sounds like the edgy, like, oh, these aren't like these are Scarborn. This fantasy people were born for great tragedy, or it's like they were always made broken, and so they put themselves together, so that's why they chose to call themselves the Scarborn.
I'll get into the nature of soul scars in a bit. But I have always used as a parallel the relation
Meanwhile, Dark Troll. I just want to throw hands with strong people, leave me alone.
hmm Meanwhile, the relationship between humanoid and barbarous, I've always likened to Alliance and Horde, because it would be very easy to look at the totality of barbarous as evil, but that's not always the case.
We just have different ways of how to do things.
Barbarous have a very might makes right attitude, which is also why it's kind of hard for any sort of unified front when it comes to barbarous to really stick around.
The fact that their game allows you to be barbarous adventurers already tells you a lot about Nuance.
And they don't stop you from playing barbarous, but there are caveats. There are quite a lot of caveats. To the point where
like it's nice that they go and they let you give you that role, because most of the time they either like, no, these are the bad guys, you can't be the bad guys.
I would say if there is one classic evil race, I would call Diamonds that phenomena.
Yeah, though, if there's anything that it, obviously the bigger case when it comes to the evil side of things is the way demons are used. Demons were something that was hinted at a few times in 1.0, but didn't fully get explored, at least in the core books. But there's a whole system around demons in 2.0, especially in 2.5.
Demons, you say?
Demons?
Especially through things like the Warlock class, which we will get into later in this series. Demons had shown up in the past, and they were in part responsible for one of those apocalypses. I believe in their case it was the end of the Magic Civilization period, because people were getting way too cavalier with summoning and manipulating demons.
You summon and kill. Summon and kill. I failed to see the logic here.
Hold on, Monk. I think your stream crashed.
Yeah, it's disconnected.
Ah, shit.
I mean, hey, at least we caught it.
Oh, I think we're back.
Okay. What's probably gonna end up happening is I'm gonna see like two or three different notifications on some servers. But point is, given some of the designs, especially the higher end demons, yeah, there's some people who were probably
Sorry,
freaks.
chat. Mildred's stream could not handle thick demon wives.
Oh no, that's horrible. That's terrible. Nobody would possibly link those in the side chat or link a place to see it.
That would be awful. I
terrible.
don't want to see those. Not at all.
But truth be told, if a bunch of demons suddenly showed up and decided to wreak havoc in either continent, I'm pretty sure both humans and barbarous would say, "Truce, truce. Fight, fight. Pork rind,
Kitchen?
pork rind. Kitchen,
Kitchen. Yeah.
It's like keeping with the World of Warcraft analogy. It's kind of like what happened during the Burning Crusade, where both
Yeah.
sides are like, hey, we don't like each other, but these guys are worried.
Or like the one time in Dungeons and Dragons where the Abyss and the Nine Hells are like, you know what? We hate each other, but let's start fighting for a moment and let's fuck these guys up. We can kill each other when it's over.
Hmm. Pretty much. And obviously for different reasons, and of course, you don't need to give a dark troll an excuse to throw hands.
Mm.
But something else I think I should note is, while the third sword was responsible for the creation of mana and thus more easy access to magic, it also allowed for the creation of swords of protection, which is a defense mechanism that pretty much every major city has within Raxia. It's not a full-on barrier that stops attacks, but what it does do is make it very, very difficult for anything with a soul scar to enter. Soul scars are a kind of soul damage that can happen through resurrection or other means, and Barbarous have more soul scars than normal. The way the mechanic usually works is if you end up having your character get killed and then revived later, they end up taking a soul scar. Basically, the attempt to put their soul back in their body damaged it. If they take too many of them, their character becomes an NPC and goes from human to undead. The soul scars that Barbarous have are not due to damaged souls per se, but due to them having an association with Ignis. And I have referred to Ignis as the Sword of Freedom, but that freedom can sometimes be chaotic, or it can just be freedom in the way that people think.
One step shy of going full anarchy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And the other, I'd say the other thing about it is that the Sword of Protection needs to be powered through artifacts known as sword shards. These things are all over the place, and a common thing is going out to get sword shards, returning them to the branch of the Adventurers Guild that you got a particular job from, and getting rewarded with Gamel and reputation. And the reputation system, I think it was in it may have been in 1.0. I may have missed it, but it plays a much bigger role in 2.0. Aside from the fact that there are certain items and equipment that you can only get through spending reputation, it also plays a factor in your advancement within the Adventurers Guild, because it has something of a ranking system. If you've seen certain anime that have some sort of Adventurers Guild or something like it, you may have seen that they have rating metrics for different types of quests. Both Fairy Tail and Naruto come to mind immediately for that, but I'm certain that there's other examples. The point with it is that as you
For
advance,
specific reference in terms of more tabletop Ares, I would direct your attention to Goblin Slayer.
I was just about to say Goblin Slayer.
yes,
Or like most of the isekai animes, where the
Mhm.
main character is some sort of adventurer.
Yeah, and
That's a very good reference.
I've seen people try and claim that the whole Adventurers Guild concept started with isekai when it really didn't. I'd say one of the earliest known examples I can think of is the Slayers Guilds in Fathford and the Grey Mouser. And even beyond that, an Adventurers Guild is just a incarnation of trade guilds from medieval times. And truth be told, I find adventuring as a profession to be a very reliable way to introduce a party of adventurers into a story without having
It's
to go with...
also a convenient tool for gathering essential characters in one place.
Exactly.
And you don't have to do the whole you all meet at a tavern shit. Now, although most of the time when I do the you all meet at a tavern, nobody trusts it because they know that a fight's about to break out.
It's a tavern. There's always a fight that breaks out.
And for fuck's sake, I have a dice game called Infighting. It is exactly what you think it is.
I hate how it took me a second to register the pun.
That's is very
Well,
interesting.
we can't have
Har
Waffle
har.
House be the one place where every fight
Har.
happen.
Maybe if I do it again, I'll dress it up like a Waffle House.
This is the most
Hold on,
dangerous
I'm
place
writing
on
that
Earth.
down. I'm writing that down. The end being a fantasy of Waffle House.
Waffle House. Just remember, when you're here, you're not family. And we're not your daddy.
You
Unless
meet
you
at
want us to
Fantasy White Castle.
No.
Oh, dear
No.
God.
Ugh. Okay, which of us is gonna have to explain to Maki about the gladiatorial arena that is Waffle House?
My vote is for the host.
Damn it. Waffle House is a infamous place. So infamous that there was a petition to have a Waffle House arena in Tekken, which actually got Harada's attention. It didn't happen because of rights issues and the fact that the owners of Waffle House probably don't want to encourage that reputation, is what I would say. But the infamous part about it is, for one, it is a dive chain that is open 24 hours, which does means it ends up
Last
getting
few
people
places.
who have probably had a few too many. And two, it is actually used as a measuring index to see how bad a weather emergency is. This is known
Dear
as the
God.
Waffle House Index.
Because Waffle
Yeah,
House
long
do
story
not
short-
close.
Long story short, if they're ever closed, you know that their shit is about to hit the fan.
Mm-hmm. And I did put up a meme about the job application for Waffle House and it having a section, "Can you fight?" and picking your fighting style. Because fights are infamous in that place. Sometimes people end up throwing hands with the cooks. And because of that, it's earned its meme as being the most dangerous place. Hell, even Randy Savage isn't immune from catching strays in a Waffle House. The best part is some of you think I'm kidding.
The
They're
more we
not.
talk about Waffle House, the more I want to go and do an entire series on my channel. Just be like, okay, okay, D&D party, you have to survive the Waffle House encounter.
Hey, you know what? I'd pay to see that.
That is fair. But in addition to that, the like was mentioned, there were the different apocalypses. There was also a period of time where gods walked the earth and crazy shit evolved out of that. Uh, there are also certain races we'll get into that claim that they are tied to gods, but how accurate that is debatable.
I mean, some of it might be legit, the other might be just people making shit up.
Mm-hmm. I should also note that there is a rumored fourth sword, Fortuna. This is one of those mysteries that's left up to the table to play with. Fortuna tends to show up, somebody becomes a legend wielding it, and then it disappears. And I should note, when it comes to the insanity that was the war between gods, it ends up reverberating throughout the entire world, which causes some pocket realms known as bubble worlds to form. The concept of bubble worlds is a relatively new thing. It's only been around for a couple of years now. But they're essentially pocket worlds that operate under their own rules. But after that, in addition to that, you have the matter of abysses, whether it be the giant wall of abyss, which was due to the demons trying to basically encroach on Roxia, as well as shallow abysses, which are somewhat like bubble worlds, but in the sense that they are pocket dimensions, but they are much smaller, much more volatile, and sometimes you can go into the place and not come out, and sometimes...
And more depression.
Oh, yeah. And the later on, when you start to have Magitech, the big appeal with it is that while yes, it doesn't have the raw power that the old Wizard Kings had, it is something that, in theory, anybody can use. And it really takes its hold in Alflame. Because one of the big changes that was introduced in 2.5 was magic trains. This was introduced as a way to showcase how people could go longer distances. And not only are trains a big deal in parts of Alflame, there is a whole ass god of trains, and one of the cities that got its own book has the title of the City of Railroads.
I take it that the god's name isn't Thomas.
No.
I have a feeling I know the theme of campaign, if it's ever set in that city.
Well, the thing about a lot of the areas within Sword World is that they can house a great variety of campaigns. Because yes, you do have the whole discovering lost tech, but you also have the fact that magic swords are a lot more than just a +1 longsword or something like that, even though those do exist. Sometimes what is referred to as a magic sword in this instance isn't even a sword. but they are a type of, but there are certain magic items that have a tie to the Swords of Genesis. Usually through degrees of reproductions that are nowhere near as powerful, but are manageable. Some of them were divine instruments that were meant solely for gods, and later ones were meant to be for enhancing the use of magic, and then for enhanced uses of Magitech. But some of the more powerful ones create their own pocket dimensions known as sword labyrinths. And sword labyrinths can be whole dungeons or whole networks of dungeons unto themselves. And of course, because of how they're set up, they can just as easily have their own defenses. So you have that particular angle. You have the fact that when it comes to shallow abysses, the main way to deal with them is to go in them and break their core, which can produce abyss shards that can be used for various means, even though it is considered playing with fire because it is still messing around with something associated with demons. And of course, within a lot of these city books, like Starkguide Granzale, there's plenty of one-off scenarios that are put in that could easily fuel their own adventure. So there's no shortage of options. And I think that's the ideal kind of setting to build for a TTRPG. One where the kind of stories that you could tell are significantly widened. Like I contrast that with, say, let's use Shadowrun for instance, even though I like Shadowrun a lot. It is built on you being Shadowrunners and taking jobs, and a lot of times those jobs involve somebody stabbing you in the back. That's not a criticism on the Sixth World, that's just something that happens when you hyper-focus on one angle. Of course, there's plenty of ways to do it, but you get the point. Mm-hmm. And something I am trying to find is there is a image that showcases the advancement of adventurers, which is kind of in a almost pyramid setup. So, all right, that is in the 2.5 material that I have. I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out that a lot of the adventure books have their own little quirks that are tied to it. Like, I think the Vice City book has its own system for building the areas within Vice City. The idea with it was to have it so that no two runs of it are the same. Which has made it relatively easy for Sword World 2.0 and 2.5 to be run solo. They weren't necessarily built for it. There isn't a dedicated solo mode like there is in some games. But it is something that's present. And let me... Here it is. Though Yep, I found what I was looking for. So let me put that in the side chat for you guys so you can see the way the rank works. There we go. So if you look at that pyramid, you'll see the different ranks, the reputation that you end up having, as well as the way the general public sees you, and the places where you can get issued that rank. You know, starting with no reputation, you're a nobody, to all the way up to being treated as a superhero. And of course, the higher ranks, the bigger the office you have to go to get that.
Hey, but at least it feels earned.
Mm-mm.
That is one of those things where it's like, hey, you can get a promotion, but you have to physically go to this office to do it. You can't just stay in like little starter village and grind up your ranks. Like you physically have to travel.
Yeah, because obviously with the degree of branch is at the bottom, independent branches. So just any old house. Then multi-branch joints, then intra-city joints, then domestic joints, then regional joints, and then headquarters. And in the same vein, you have the public's opinion of you going from hollow, i.e. who's that, running around, still growing, fully fledged, worthy of attention, powerhouse, first class, a brave one, hero, and superhero. And getting certain benefits in the process. I also like that each of them are named after some sort of blade. You know, dagger, rapier, broadsword, greatsword, flamberge. Sentinel's the
Very on brand.
Yep, Sentinel, Hyperion, those are two magic swords. Then Sword of Genesis, then 1-star Sword of Genesis, then 2-star, and then 3-star. I always enjoy when a setting gives you that kind of reputation advancement. So that by the end of it, you're not just a no-name adventurer, you're somebody who is that guy.
I want to be the guy.
No, you don't. Nobody wants to go through that pain again.
Fair.
Nope.
Nope.
But, and even though I've kind of skipped around when it comes to magic, it is important to note the variety of magic that's available, and the fact that it's not just some, for lack of a better term, and I've used this on some of the episodes of the Valley of the Judge, big, dumb list. In a lot of fantasy games, there's the temptation to have the different styles of spellcasters still use magic the same way. With something like Sword World, that's not exactly the case. Each of the spell lists that are available are tied to a specific class. And even beyond that, there are certain quirks with those spells. Or with the casters. The only exception is Deep Magic, which is tied to 2 classes. But the most common form of magic is things like True Speech and Spiritualism, which could be considered a incarnation of Ancient and Spirit magic from 1.0. Although a lot of the elemental stuff that was in Spirit Magic in 1.0 has transferred over into a new spell list, Fairy Magic, for, well, Fairy Tamers. what I thought was really funny was I came across a excerpt from Roll and Roll that tried to make an analogy between fairy magic and Final Fantasy summoning. Uh, it's I get why that comparison was made, but I feel like the way spirits work in the Mana series would be a closer analog.
Okay.
Uh, because it's far more about elementally aligned spirits rather than summoning some great beast. Although you can do that eventually. Of course, divine magic is still a thing, and there are still divine god exclusive spells. There's just a lot more gods, so the levels that you get those spells is a bit more uniform. In 1.0, where you got certain spells depending on your god, was all over the place. And there are a few others. There is a druid class, and we will get to that eventually, but it isn't nearly as do everything as the druid you might think of.
Oh, thank goodness, I'm getting sick and tired of that version of the druid.
Also, in addition to spiritualism, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up they have golems. Golems that you can upgrade using certain items. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out that pretty much every spellcasting type requires a particular catalyst. And that catalyst has to be in your hand, or in some cases on a ring. Meaning that if you're going to be using that magic and you don't have that item equipped, no dice. For example, the nature magic of druids requires that you have a Staff of the Sacred Tree in one of your hands. If you don't have that, you can't cast spirit magic. You can't cast nature magic.
There's a ton of minion types within this game, including a special type of minions called Fellows. Don't ever show sword word to Dungeons and Dragons DMs. They are somehow allergic to players having fun minions.
I understand why there's that allergy, because D&D wants to have minions as basically additional characters.
Yeah.
Which, incidentally, is the reason why when I wrote the companions for my game, that was something I was deliberately trying to avoid. I didn't want your animal companion or whatnot to be just a gimped version of another character. Because while that sounds tempting, it also results in a logistical problem of that player having to do twice the work. Whereas with a fellow, which was a concept that was introduced in 2.5, is a way to easily integrate players who aren't there, as well as integrate NPCs in a way that can contribute without being overwrought. Since fellows can't get hit, and they don't track like normal characters. It's basically a D6 chart with extra steps. You know, during certain encounters, you'd roll a D6, see if, and the rest of the check is already done through the calculations on that spreadsheet. You just have to look at the column, and that's it. If you're have to do an extra roll, but doing rolls with Sword World is not going to be too much of a problem because, with a few rare exceptions, every single roll you do is 2d6. Doesn't matter if it's attacking, if it's damaging, if it's checking to pick a lock, it's all 2d6. The only major thing that got dropped from 1.0 was a defensive version of what's known as the power table, which is a way for a variety of results to come out of a 2d6 roll. A lot of spells, attacks, and the like will say that it does power X plus a set amount of damage. Like, for example, power 40. So you'd roll 2d6, look at the 40 entry on the power table, and add that much damage. Or do it again if you roll boxcars, and then keep doing it as long as you keep getting boxcars. And
always love a good explosion mechanic.
Incidentally, it's because of the fact that it's 2d6 and not a d20. Those criticals are significantly more rare. There's a lower probability of rolling boxcars than there is rolling a natural 20. And in fact, if we are to do the dreaded M word, math.
I don't like math at my table.
So there is a 2.7 chance of getting a natural 12 on a 2d6 roll, as opposed to a flat 5% on a d20. Like, more often than the average result for 2d6 is 7. And because of that, when someone gets it, it's going to be a bit of a hype moment. Especially if they're that one person who has a 14 karat horseshoe shoved up their ass and gets criticals like 3 times in a row.
We've talked about this in the Anima podcast. When in Anima, a fellow player I was playing with, he'd regularly get 3 to 4 open rolls in a session in a row.
I mean, at least the open roll somewhat diminishes through multiple results.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that's not the case here. But I'd say one of the biggest shifts from 1.0 to 2.0 is more in tone. 1.0 had a very sword and sorcery look. 2.0 very much has a fantasy manga look. Though despite that, I've seen some say that 2.0 and 2.5 aren't as dark as 1.0. Nope, that is wrong. That is very, very wrong. I think people just assume that because some people still have a especially in the tabletop space, they'll have a particular hate boner for bringing anything manga adjacent into TTRPGs. I realize how silly that sounds, but I've been in those circles. I've seen them do it.
Yeah, that does seem kind of crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it does. It's a very ivory tower kind of thing, even though some of the people in that circle like to insist that they're not. And yes, Sig, I'm specifically calling out the Grogs, who I keep saying fuck them.
Certainly don't blame you there.
Mhm. This, incidentally, this is also why the term old school is completely useless to me. But I know that I have been not getting into specifics because there's a lot of tone setting for this particular episode. But since now some of you are already familiar with Sword World, in part either because of me or outside of me. I only say that because of recent events I was made aware of. But I'll start with you on this, Amorzen. From what you saw from the brief glimpse that you did have when it came to just Core Book 1, what was your take on the world that it was presenting?
Did seem quite. It seems like it's quite in depth. There is a lot of stuff in there that's not left for interpretation, but it allows you to set up a world with a little bit more rich history, I think, than I've seen in other games that And so far, with what I'm reading, that's why I've been so quiet, is I'm reading this one. I think this would be a wonderful play. I haven't experienced it myself. I do like the way they have the 2d6 system set up there. That little bit of extra chance of not being able to instantly kill some or something like that.
Oh, I've seen monsters get one-shotted, but that's another story.
But I do like the manga approach to things here. Like as you were saying before, I think that is a great addition to the ability to build the story. The DM.
Oh yeah. I know you and I have talked about Sword World off and on, and I did have to give you the history lesson because of the whole Lodos thing. But what's been your take, at least when it comes to the 2.x era?
From what I've seen, that they definitely took notes. It's like, hey, let's open this up a bit more and go. It's like, hey, this is kind of its own setting. Not trying to rehash things previously like a certain other RPG.
And I will note I've seen my fair share of not only one-shotting monsters but also certain shenanigans. Hi Rick, how you doing? Have you run out of popcorn yet? And Sig, I know you had approached me a while back about running it, and I suggested looking at Start Guide Granzale as a basis. But when you had gone over it, what was your take? Because I know I pitched it to you quite a bit.
Yeah, you've pitched it to me quite a bit, and I have wanted to run it because I do love the system. I do want to see how this works, and I do love everything about this setting. I just haven't had the chance.
Yeah, I know things get busy.
Well, that, and I've been running FFLE for a bit, but eventually I'll get around to running Sword World. Maybe I'll do it for one of my Sig Tells a Story things.
And Hydra, you weren't there for the Magic Railroad campaign.
Well, I was, but only as a viewer.
Yeah, that's. Oh yeah, that's right. You were in the audience, so you saw some of the shenanigans, including Kay whining about Wet Rabbit.
That definitely puts a smile on my faces.
But from what you had observed, I don't know if you were there for the study hall stream.
Yeah, I was there. That's what I realized that the whole meme, Coops are missing the waifus again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what's been your take when it comes to the setting?
Honestly, what I really appreciate is, like in Anima, how a very well developed world that can bring about a whole multitude of approaches and adventures. And this, but one thing that really does stick out to me is effectively how this world survived 3.5 apocalypses, and it's still kicking.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Incidentally, still kicking is probably the method of playing Blood I would recommend to most people in this call. Not because I think you can't handle anything harder, but because I'm not sure, because you have to be a certain level of masochist.
I've already played it on the normal skill, so...
But I have heard the thing of I want to play, but I can't find a group who wants to play it. But I feel like that is going to be gradually changing over the next year.
Yes, indeed.
And last but certainly not least, obviously you had beaten me to the punch when it came to Sword World, Maki. But what was your take when it came to just the setting that it has? Obviously, we'll get into the mechanics later. I know I'm not focusing on mechanics this time, but it's much like what I did last time.
Well, what specifically would you like to know?
I'd say what I'd like to know is your take on the tone of 2.5's setting. Since that's kind of what I've been going into with everyone else. I wanted to make sure I got everyone's take so far.
I think if we go general, I would say 2.5 generally shifts its focus slightly into more. How to explain it? Wonder of adventure angle.
I could certainly see that.
I would say there's something to be said about 2.0 being more explored and more known. Meanwhile, 2.5 there have been small regions explored. But the majority of the continent is sort of in a state where anyone could think of anything essentially.
They had teased that whole blank slate kind of thing with the Razodon continent in 2.0. But, and maybe this is me thinking too American, but 2.5 strikes me as the New World or the Wild West. Some places more blatantly than others.
That is actually a pretty good comparison. This is the new frontier.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't help that one of the first introductions to 2.5 was a scenario adventure in GM Warlock that was all about bringing people from one continent to another. And I can't remember the name of the module, but it was in the Warlock magazine, and also had a sister entry with the Isle of Dead Sailors. but the big thing on it was adventuring from one continent to the next, and also finding a ghost ship full of Barbarous.
R. I know the one you talk about.
Mm-mm.
Journey to Alframe.
Yep, that's the one.
That was the module.
Mm-mm. And it's I've mentioned in the past that I would and I'm not saying this because of local bias, but I've always wanted to see more RPGs lean into the North American mythos. And of course 2.0 and 2.5 was going to really get my attention with that, especially given how I have made no bones about the fact that Wild Arms is one of my favorite RPGs. I know this will hardly come as a surprise, given I did a whole episode about Wild Arms years ago. But
Either way, the general feeling focused in the 2.5 is adventure and knowing customs.
Mhm.
It's no wonder there are books with very detailed martial arts that you study by traveling to that region and then learning its customs.
oh yeah,
It's all about the journey.
we will get into that. I can assure you. But I think that's as good.
Now I'm imagining how a Wuxia to the setting would be used in Sword World.
We already have that accounted for.
Oh yeah, that's true. My bad.
Oh, we had that accounted for a while ago, and even a bubble world focused on period dramas. Rather in that style. But when we come back here in 2 weeks, I know the dating on the regular schedule is a bit wonky. We will be going into a bit of a timeline in what I call 4 eras, 3 catastrophes, where we'll be going into the Schnell, Durandal, Almenas periods, as well as the Diabolic Triumph, and why adventurers are relevant in this world. This is something we kind of dipped into during this episode, but we'll be going more into it later. Also, Dragon asking about suplexing a train. Seriously, people, get a new joke.
4
mean-
eras, 3 catastrophes, and how to fuck a world thrice with no lube. That's the name.
I mean, if you're gonna go for no lube, but at the very you might as well just go full. You might as well just see if you can throw in some sandpaper in there while you're at it.
Too late. I already used the sandpaper gag when it came to replacing the toilet paper with that.
Of course you would. You're a magnificent bastard after all.
Yes. But that being said,
I mean, I am sure if you use sandpaper, someone will inevitably gag.
but when I come back here next week, it will be the penultimate episode of Fated Continuum, my series going into how I might adapt different Final Fantasy games into my system. We're finally getting to the one thing I had been avoiding for months, and that is the MMOs.
God, this is gonna be a long one.
Specifically, 11.
Yeah, I do not envy you for that one. Good luck.
Well, I'm gonna be there for it, so we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. and obviously 2 weeks after next week will be 14, and then I'll have that wrapped up. I did look at the reveal of Evercold. It's not doing enough that I need to pivot too much. But that is a story for another week. So until then, on behalf of the Good Brothers present and not present, may your adventures be grand and your treasures myriad. Stay frosty.
See you on the trail.